This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today's gospel of Jesus walking on water appears in 3 of the 4 gospels, Matthew, Mark, and John. But it is only in Matthew we are told that Peter also walked on water. We could deduce that, of course, it is possible. We are capable of doing what God commands of us, and He will provide whatever we need. And that is true. However, there is much more that this gospel teaches us. Before we think about Matthew's inclusion of Peter walking on water, let's recall how the gospel begins. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side of the Sea of Galilee while He dismissed the crowds. And then He went up to the mountain by Himself to pray, alone. Often this aspect of today's gospel is overlooked, but something we should pay attention to. Just as Jesus needed time alone to be with His Father, so do we. Jesus had many people needing and depending on Him, and He still makes solitary time with God His priority. As Christians, we are taught to take care of others, but we can't meet their needs if we haven't also taken care of our own spiritual needs. Now, as Jesus is praying, the disciples are crossing the sea in the boat when a storm kicks up. If you were in the boat, what might you be thinking? We don't know what was happening in that boat throughout the night, but we do know that very early in the morning, Jesus comes walking toward them on the water. Would you do a double take, wondering if what you see is real or just a figment of your imagination? Would you too be terrified, thinking it's a ghost? But then Jesus identifies who He is and speaks these words of comfort. Take heart, it is I. Don't be afraid. Now these disciples have been on quite a journey with Jesus already, and yet they don't recognize Him until He tells them who He is. We've also journeyed throughout our lives with Jesus and the work of the Holy Spirit. But we too fail to recognize the Lord when He comes alongside us during our own personal storms. Jesus tells them and He tells us, don't be afraid. But isn't that easier said than done for most of us? Perhaps that is why Matthew includes Peter's walking on water. We learn from this encounter that Jesus understands the immaturity of Peter's and our own faith, our doubts, our worries, and our fears. And if you remember, Peter replies, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. And the Lord invites Peter to come. Peter has enough faith and trust in Jesus in the moment that he steps out of the boat and he starts walking on water toward Jesus. Enough faith until he takes his eyes off the Lord and sees the wind and waves surrounding him, and he begins to sink. Those darn distractions, they will sink us every time if we allow them to. But Peter cries out, Lord, save me. And Jesus instantly reaches out His hand to catch Peter. Can you relate to Peter in this story? When he jumps out of the boat, his heart is full of good intentions. We too sometimes take a leap of faith with similarly good intentions, but like Peter's, our faith soon falters. Peter's experience reminds us that a lapse of faith is merely a stumble, not a fall, not a failure. And just as a mother or father gently picks up a child who is learning to walk, the Lord is always near to raise us back up safely to our feet when we call for Him, call to Him for help. As Christians, as human beings, faith and doubt are always mixed up in us, and circumstances can quickly change our outlook. One small incident can take us from the joy of a mountaintop to the deepest of valleys. Sometimes we can feel Jesus' arms wrapped around us, trusting Him completely, and then the next we doubt His power to help us and try to take matters into our own hands. Jesus uses this stormy experience to bring us into a fuller understanding of who He is. I've asked you to get into the boat today to be part of the experience, and I'm asking you to ponder one more time a part of the exchange of Jesus and Peter. When Peter asked Jesus to save him, Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When Jesus spoke those words, was he talking about that specific moment? Or Peter's faith in its totality? What I mean, was he talking about the times in the past when Peter had doubts? What is happening right now to Peter in his current situation? Or what is yet to come? The times that Jesus knows Peter will face and still question what he seeks to know about Jesus and doesn't totally understand. Then ask yourself, why does God keep on rescuing us even though we are of little faith? The simple truth is because he loves us that much. God is full of grace and never-ending love. It can't be described any other way. It's the same powerful love that led Jesus to the cross. Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. Let us build up our trust on that promise. As we all continue to grow in faith, may our response echo those of the disciples as Jesus and Peter climbed into the boat that morning. Truly you are the Son of God. To God be the glory.